G'day and well to Kenty Blitz on Origin Wednesday, Game 2 this evening. And Kenty, if we were worried that today was going to be a quiet build-up, we were certainly wrong.
Yeah, look, it's certainly caught fire, hasn't it, last night and today. Look, Aaron Woods tried to put a rocket under the whole preparation a week ago. It took a week for Queensland to respond, but Billy Slater came back, had his say, and then came out this morning and... It's really made everyone sit back and think, actually, Warren.
Yeah, so Kenty, last week, Aaron Woods came out, had a shot at Billy and said that he was a grub.
Yeah, called him a grub.
Called him a grub. And then Billy's waited 7 days and he's come back yesterday in a presser and reacted poorly, I thought.
He reacted emotionally.
Emotionally?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he alluded to what happened several years back now with Paul Green, and connected that to the pressure that is under coaches and that people should be mindful of their comments. And it certainly shocked everyone when he said that.
And then he's come back this morning in another press conference and apologised for his words yesterday. We've got that now. We're going to have a quick listen to that.
I wrongly made the link between Paul Green's death and the stress and pressures of coaching, which wasn't accurate, nor was it appropriate. I feel terrible about what I said, and I spoke to Amanda Green this morning and apologised for any hurt that it may have caused her and her family.
So, Kenty, when I first heard that, I was, it was sad to hear that from him. I thought it was quite hitting, and obviously, he's gone back last night and thought about what he said, and it's obviously a guy under pressure. But what did you think?
Well, look, Byron, this is a conversation. There's not a strong point for us in rugby league to have, because in rugby league we are very surface level with our arguments. We like someone, we don't like someone. What you said was dumb. What you said was great. The mitigating circumstances in things that get said, all those little nuances. People that don't, you can't argue that in 140 words. You can't argue that in the comments columns. So people don't want to buy into it. They just want to sit there and tell us what they think. But the fact is, this is something. I looked at it this way. Okay, my impression was they were arguing on two different planes, and
okay.
So on the one level, Aaron Woods came out, called him a grub, and he did it purely in football terms. And he did it to try and hype the series and try to get people talking about the series and try to get something moving. And as an ex-Origin player, I wouldn't say he's got a right, but he's got the ability to do that, which is an ability that you and I and others don't have, that other people around the game don't have. Only really ex-players, ex-players can really have that ability. But Aaron Woods was operating in that plane of, this is just hype for the game, and it's just this superficial tit-for-tat arguing that we always carry on about. Where Billy Slater took it on Tuesday was in a whole different area, and he got very deep and very personal about, which eventually led to his comments about Paul Green and the impact the words can have on people and what happens. Now, Billy was at a completely different level than what Aaron Woods was. Okay? Now, we all looked at that, and I think my first impression was I think Billy would wish he had that time again. Second impression was it suggested to me that the pressure that he's under, and when you're under pressure, you do behave and react and say things that is probably not how you would normally be. Okay, it's not if everything was sailing along okay.
You know what surprised me though? It was obviously well prepared, right? He knew the question was coming. He's had 7 days to prepare for it,
but that's the indication of the pressure he's under, though,
right, okay.
Warren. Because the fact that he's thought about it, he has prepared for it, and at no point, as he was rehearsing that, those points he wanted to make, at no point did a part of him go, "Hang on a second. This is just way out of the realm of where we need to go."
Yeah.
Okay. He should have pulled it back into what he had to talk about with the footy, kept it within those footy confines and all that. The fact that he didn't and he was unable to do that, that is the genuine sign to me that of the pressure he's under, that he didn't have that presence of mind to be able to sit there and go, hang on a sec, where am I going here? And that's what happens sometimes when you're under pressure. And under emotional pressure. Okay.
And you often talk about the difference of pressure between coaches who are coaching all the time and coaches who are just coming in for Origin, etc. So the guys that come in for Origin don't always have the experience of what to say. I mean, we saw Adam Bryan crack the other day.
O'Brien, yeah.
Yep, we saw him crack the other day. We saw, we see coaches all the time under pressure, and Billy was obviously under pressure and didn't have that experience.
Well, and that's what I believe happened. And so then he's gone away and he's thought about it overnight. Whether somebody got to him, I don't know. I dare say somebody would have and just had a quiet word to him. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Because it certainly was it was an unsettling thing to say for everybody that witnessed it. Certainly, Billy would have seen the reaction to it, as others around him would have. And I dare say at some point somebody's got him just to say, you okay? And he's gone away and he's thought about it. And that's when he's, you know what, I've overstepped the mark here, which is why he rang Amanda Green this morning, apologised to her for what he said. He did bring in other things associated with Paul Green's passing, which, the CTE and things like that, okay? So that's, look, and I think it's a funny conversation now because there'll be a lot of people in agreement with Paul Green who will come out and defend Paul Green. And the irony is they'll defend it in a way which is exactly what Paul Green was trying to address.
Yes.
Which is these attacks on people.
Yes.
Okay. And so there'll be attacks on Aaron Woods from Billy supporters and things like that. So the irony of it all will be that exactly what Billy was trying to highlight as something should be avoided is what it will encourage from Billy supporters in some respects.
I mean, sometimes in life, right? I mean, I don't know the pressure of being an Origin coach, and neither do you. But you've had your own pressures, right? And when you're under pressure, you react completely different, and sometimes you crack and say the wrong thing.
Well, you do. You do. Oh, tell me about it. Of course you do. Okay,
Yeah.
and that happens. Okay, and
so what do they do now?
well, no, I think he's done all he can do
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Okay, so the thing about it now is to get it quickly as quickly as they can back on the football. Billy got up first thing this morning and addressed it, which is the right way to handle that. And now it's just move on. The interesting thing to come out of this now, and again, this is sort of terrifies me to start talking about this. But the interesting thing about this now, which I don't want to talk about, but which is also the thing we need to talk about, is how this affects the football. So I don't want to trivialise everything that's just happened because it was deeply personal to many people what was said, including Billy. But we also need to say, okay, you know what? It was a mistake. It happened. Let's move on. The Amanda Green has accepted his apology.
Okay.
And they're just happy to move on. And I think as a game, we need to say, look, let's just put it in one of those little dark cupboards that we hide things away and we just don't go back again.
Yeah.
Okay. But that said, I wonder what sort of reaction we're going to get out of Queensland over this, because in game one, we were expecting Queensland to react on behalf of Jonathan Thurston over the Spencer Leniu comments, and when Spencer Leniu basically shirt-fronted him in that club game earlier this season. Did not happen. But Billy's a slightly different beast. He's the coach there at Queensland. He's been brought into this, and I dare say, and unfortunately, Aaron Woods isn't playing, but I dare say that there will be some sort of physical response from Queensland. Certainly they needed a response anyway. Okay, they needed to get back up into New South Wales's face, and they needed to be more physical and more aggressive, and they needed to go back to what Origin football is about, which we've spoken about ad nauseum in recent days, and just get away from that elevated club game that we all thought game one was. This might be the spark that does that. Again, got to be careful to talk about it this way, because people will find one little thread of something I've just said, or thread of what Aaron Woods has said, or what thread of Billy said to lay some truth around, and they will try and use that as their ammunition.
And that's the problem when you're in the media. Like, you're in the media, I'm not in the media, but you're in the media and have been in the media, and you're under the pressure of cameras, and, you can retake sometimes. Billy couldn't retake. Aaron Woods couldn't retake. And so, sometimes you say the wrong thing.
It's the four things in life you can't get back, and, the spent arrow is one of them, the spoken word's another. So time and opportunity, the other two, if anybody's wondering.
Okay, I was wondering the other two, Okay.
But so the 4 things you can't get back, and look, it's out now. You cannot unring the bell, so to speak. So it's been said, but I just think the more maturely we can try and handle this and put it to bed, the better. I do think there will be some sort of response in tonight's game about that. That said, I don't think it will be verbalised after the game. I don't think that anybody will say we did this for Greeny after what happened. I think they will try and move away from it and put it to bed. I think there'll be, particularly if they win, there'll be strict instructions to not talk about this and to not address this. Yep. Even though I guarantee you the media will be asking all about it and will be pains in the ass asking about it. But that's what will happen. So, but like I said, it's one of those little, I think, painful chapters in Origin history. And I sympathise with Billy. Like I can kind of see where his head's at. He's lost last year's series. He lost the last game last year. He lost the first game this year. The last 2 games that New South Wales have won have both been on Suncorp Stadium, which is a big defeat for Queensland. They're going to a place tonight where they've never won. Yep. Okay, and in fact, they've had scores put on them both times they've played there. And if they do win tonight, they're still going to try and win Game 3 in Sydney in the decider. So. He's under immense pressure. He's not used to dealing with it. This is probably the darkest spot Billy's been. Last year when he lost the series, which is the only series he's lost, he did win Game 1. Okay, so he's never been behind in a series like this. So, I just sympathise for the poor bugger, to be honest. Like Billy's an intelligent guy and he's a deep thinker. And so I could see how he got there under pressure. Now, the obvious response to this was just for Billy to come out and say something like, a bit rich from Aaron Wood saying that. The one thing that we never were scared of in a Queensland jersey was Aaron Woods in a Blues jersey or something like that. And he takes takes a shot at him, puts him in his place. A little bit of humour involved. Not that that's particularly funny, but it just sort of moves on. And if he says that, it's a one line in a story about many things, but instead it just dominated. It's dominated the news cycle for the past 24 hours. And look, hopefully we'll move on. Thank God the game's on tonight, and we can just say, after today, it's all been put to bed. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that as a group. Let's talk about a little bit about what you were talking about then, about kind of the mythology of Origin, and the mystique involved. Yeah. Well, that's what Queensland have got to try and find tonight. Yeah. Okay. How do they do that? I think what we spoke about, what Chris Close said yesterday, is the greatest thing I've heard in Origin in some years. Yeah, amazing. Yep. The way he just said, Queensland have just got to go and find that something extra, and it sounds simple. It sounds almost, Neanderthal to sort of put it this way, but that's what Origin is. Origin is not a game of X's and O's. It is a very basic game, but the reason it's such a great football game is because it's played so basically, and it's played at such a frenetic pace and intensity that you get rid of a lot of the tactics and it just goes back to instinct, and you play what's in front of you. And that's why the best players are the best Origin players. Wally Lewis is the greatest Origin player because he was the most instinctive player. That's why Alan Langer was such a great Origin player. He was so instinctive. Those guys, their greatness was they just had great footy instincts. That's why Wally Lewis was a better Origin player than he ever was a club player, because as a club player, he fell out of the game plans and all the preparation that they'd done because he played to his instincts. But the rest of the team weren't going with him when he did that. In Origin, you can. And I think that's what Queensland have got to do tonight. They've got to go and they've got to realise they did it a few years back. They got beat. And when Wayne Bennett had them, they got beat. And Wayne Bennett's whole message, and I'll say this again, was essentially, we've got to run harder and tackle harder. Now, he didn't say that publicly. He said that to the team. And he put it on them to do that. And he made them understand that was the thing that separated winning from losing in that game that was coming up. Now, Queensland went out and won the series under Wayne, so... they obviously listened to what he said. Tonight, the trick for Billy is to get his players to understand and believe in that. Earlier on in the week, we were sitting down. You were telling me a little bit about the early days of Origin and the mystique behind, Arthur Beetson and Mick Cronin. Yeah, can you fill the guys in on that? So the great Origin myth, is mate against mate. Arthur Beetson got picked out of reserve grade at Parramatta to captain captain Queensland.
One of the great stories.
And what is true is that when Ron McAuliffe was running the Queensland Rugby League, he said, "Pick who you want, but Beatson's captain." That's what he said to the selectors.
Yeah, okay.
Pick who you want, but Beatson's captain. Now, first off, Arthur Beetson was not picked out of reserve grade to play in that 1980 State of Origin game. Okay, he had played reserve grade at Parramatta in that season, but so they played. I think it was July 8th. On a Tuesday night.
Jeez, come on.
It was. No, I looked at it. It's a famous date, July 8th. Right. Yeah, it's Mal Meninga's birthday.
Okay.
So it's Mal Meninga turned 18 on the day of the game.
That's impressive.
But New South Wales, Artie played 2 days before for Parramatta against South in a first grade game. Okay. And he played with Mick Cronin, obviously, and that Parramatta team that would later go on to win the 3 premierships, but which Artie wasn't part of. But Arthur had played against South on the Sunday before the game in first grade.
That's unbelievable.
They got beat by South Sydney, the Parramatta team. He did play the week before and the week before that. I had a look at it the other day just to see how far back. I think it was about 3 weeks before he wasn't in the Parramatta side. They don't keep records of what the reserve grade side was back then, but maybe that was the reserve grade game everyone's referring to. But guaranteed fact, Arthur played first grade against South on the Sunday before playing New South Wales on the Tuesday. So that's the first myth, that he came out of reserve grade to do that. The second one was that he punched Mick Cronin. Now, he did not punch Mick Cronin. So he came on, and one of the great stories is he came on with the chalk on his chest. Before the game, he sat there and he wrapped his hands. He wrapped his hands like a fighter, just wrapped his knuckles and his wrists and his thumbs, just to make sure he didn't do any damage to him or any more damage than he needed to.
Awesome.
Early in the game, he had a shot at, I think it was Gary Hambley, who was the South Sydney prop, who was playing prop for New South Wales. He put a stink. It was about second or third tackle of the game. He put a stink on with him. First scrum, there was another stink he put on. In this scrum, he put it on Steve Edge, who was his Parramatta teammate. Okay, he was playing hooker for New South Wales. So there's an all-in brawl out of the first scrum. And then later in the game, he punched the absolute living hell out of poor old Graham Wynn in the game. So Arthur, he was just a wrecking machine in that game. So I'm not trying to take away anything he's done.
And Graham Wynn was a tough man.
Oh, but look, so was Gary Hambley too.
Yeah,
they were all, Steve Edge I wouldn't be putting in a street fight for me, but the other two certainly. But Artie was the best of all, to be fair. He went through them all, and then he came in at Mick Cronin, and he swung an arm at Mick Cronin. It was a swinging arm. Cronin tried to sort of duck it. Artie collected him a little bit with the forearm, and that sparked another all-in brawl. Okay, now that's where, so things have drifted from being he punched Mick Cronin, his teammate, to he took a swinging arm at him. Now, he was just sort of search and destroy mission by that stage, Artie. He'd already put on several fights in the game, which, to be fair, was what got Queensland going. They were ready for it.
Did New South Wales know this was coming?
No. The only indication New South Wales had was Tommy Radoniga. See, New South Wales only had one training. They got on the drink the night before the game. They thought it, because they were always used to historically flog Queensland for 20-odd years.
So played on the Sunday, got on the drink on Monday.
Yeah.
Played Origin on Tuesday.
Played Origin on the Tuesday. and they just thought it was a bit of a mid-season breakaway, to be honest. And they had one training session. Queensland actually went into camp and did all that. New South Wales didn't. They had one training session, had a drink the night before the game. And it wasn't until as they were walking in and a couple of Queenslanders started abusing Tommy Radonigas, he walked in the dressing room and he said, "Look, I think we might be walking into an ambush here." That was the first realisation that it was going to come, because they could just see how feral the Queensland fans were. Because as everybody knows, every time you go to Queensland, you speak to a dozen people who were at the game. There was 170, 180,000 there that night. If you take the witness reports, because
everyone was there.
Everyone was there. No one missed
Kathy
it.
Freeman's 400, right?
Exactly. They're all there. Did
you know Tommy well?
Oh, yeah, I got on pretty well with Tommy. He was a great man, Tommy. I really, really liked Tommy,
Sounds like your kind of man.
Well, he's just a great fella. Look, Tommy was as genuine as they come. And Tommy didn't care if you're a royalty or a rat bag. If you're a good guy, he liked you. And if you're a dickhead, he didn't like you. It was that simple. It was not, he didn't care who you were, where you're from, what you were worth, anything like that. The whole thing with Tommy was the measure of a man was his character, and Tommy picked that pretty quickly, and he stuck by that pretty quickly.
Awesome. Very good.
But there's a lot of mythology around that. I remember this hatred of Queensland and Artie, and again, I don't want to. I'm bringing up Artie again, unfortunately. But Artie was, he's the godfather of Queensland and his hatred for the Blues. Now, when Artie was coaching Queensland in 1989, I think it was, Wally Lewis, night before the game, at the Travel Lodge, wherever they're staying, and Wally Lewis thought, who was captain of Queensland, thought, I've got to go to have a chat to Artie about something just ahead of the game tomorrow night. So the night before the game, he goes down, knocks on Artie's door, walks in, and Artie's sitting in his hotel room playing cards with Jack Gibson, who's the New South Wales coach. Wally was disgusted.
Yeah, right.
Like Wally couldn't believe, because Wally believed in all this hatred, and Wally lived it. He wasn't just an actor in it. He lived it, and he helped incite this hatred against New South Wales. And here he is, he's walked in, and he's his coach playing cards with the coach of New South Wales, because Artie and Jack went back to the Roosters in 74, 75. Yep. So they were very old friends, and loved playing cards with each other. And both were bored the night before the game, so there was a phone call made. Come over and we'll have a game. So Jack snuck into the Queensland hotel, and up to Artie's room to play cards with him.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very good.
Yeah.
Kenty, we've got a few Ask Kentys. We've got quite a few. We asked you to write in yesterday, and you have. So we're going to go through them quickly, because we're going to try and get through as many as possible. This is what we were just talking about. Mood FM says, who was the more influential for New South Wales origin as a player, Rodonicus or Mortimer?
As a player, Mortimer.
Yep.
Yeah, Mortimer led the 85, got him going. Yeah, Rodonicus only one origin game, which is 1980. Right. I think that was his only origin game. Tommy's influence was more as a coach when he coached in the late 90s.
I was at that 85 game. I was on the hill. It rained the whole time I was there with my old man. Yeah. One of the greatest nights of my life. Justin Masters says, who's the best New South Wales team? What year?
For me, I think 94. I like the 94 team that won the series. They had the Canberra sort of basis. They had Clyde, Daly, Stewart, Glenn Lazarus, Ian Roberts was playing prop, Benny Elias was hooker, Paul Harrigan in the second row, 94, Clyde was lock, Tim Brasher fullback. Just a very, very talented team, and tough, and were winners. They were as good as any team that's played Origin, I think.
Very good. Hall Mitchell says New South Wales only won 2 series in the 80s. What took them so long to get Origin?
Well, they just didn't buy in like Queensland did. Okay. That's the whole thing. It wasn't until 85, which is halfway through the 80s, that New South Wales started to actually take it seriously. 83 was the first 3-game series. Again, New South Wales weren't going into camps and doing it quite like Queensland were. Steve Mortimer was the first one that put them into camp and made them prepare like Queensland were preparing for the game. Okay, with the whole, the bonding sessions and all that sort of rigmarole that was going on. So it wasn't until 85 that New South Wales started to get a bit on board. They were late starters, and that's because, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to what Queensland did in the early 80s, but the early New South Wales teams thought Origin was an exhibition game. They didn't think it was anything more than that. Now, that's going to offend Queenslanders, but then Queenslanders in 87, when they played in LA, always claimed that that's just an exhibition game too. So they have it both ways, yeah.
Okay. Ryan Johnson asked for a Tommy Rodonicus story. We've already said one. You got any others?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when Tommy was named as New South Wales coach in 96 or 7 or something, 97 it might have been, whatever year it was. Anyway, he turned up at the New South Wales Rugby League headquarters. He sat down on the stage and to be interviewed. And as he sat down, everyone looked at him sitting there in his pants and his jacket and thought, mate, like Tommy's not wearing any socks, and so just didn't have any socks on with his shoes. Anyway, so when it was it's fashion these days, but not when you're wearing dress shoes and pants.
Yep.
But anyway, when it was over, Tommy, and this is the greatness of Tommy. Tommy left the announcement as we were unveiling our new coach, Tom Rodonicus. He left that, walked down through town, got on the train back to Campbelltown. Okay. But Jeff Carr, who was running the league at the time, rang up and said, Tommy, just a heads up, mate, from now on, whenever we do something like this, mate, can you just make sure you wear some socks? It just doesn't look good. And he said, Curry, he said, you're lucky. He said, I wasn't wearing socks, but I wasn't wearing undies either.
Very good, very good. Mate, Magnus Lenderson has written the longest question. Cameron Smith retired 2018 series. Kevin Walters lost. Retired from the coaching role 2024.
Yep, they lost.
Apart from 2020, Queensland's not won a series without Cameron Smith. Anything?
Well, look, the one thing Cameron Smith does, which I think is undervalued in his contribution, is his contribution to picking the right players for the game.
Interesting.
Yeah, and most people will tell you 90% of winning Origin is getting the team right.
Mm-hmm.
And Cameron Smith, he's dead set 20 out of 20 in that respect. Even when he was captaining and Mal was coaching, Mal took put a lot of weight into what Cameron was saying as far as selections went.
Greg Roney says Alex Johnson can't get picked for New South Wales. Why?
There's just better wingers in front of him.
Yeah, his time's gone. I mean, he played for Australia in 2015.
Look, he's a very good finisher.
Yeah.
But it's a different game playing rep football than club football.
Yep.
And there's just, and with due respect to Alex Johnson, there's just better wingers in front of him who deserve to be there in front of him.
More Origin-style players, perhaps.
Well, look, everyone will point to Alex Johnson the amount of tries he scored. But how many times does he score a try because South have stripped the defence inside and he actually doesn't beat anyone? Yes. You know what I mean? Like a lot of work gets done for him. Now, I'm not trying to downplay what he's done, his contribution to the game.
Yeah.
But there's just better players. I think you've got to admit there's better wingers that you would certainly, if you had to pick someone to play for your life, would you go and get Tayo or would you get Alex Johnson? Which guy do you want to get over the try line for you? You know, it's
Zach Lomax for me.
Alonso
Harris, if Billy goes down again, should Queensland go for Kevy or Wayne?
I don't think they'll go for either. I think they'll go for someone like a Josh Hannay or someone like that.
Okay. Do you think Billy should have picked Arthurs on the wing?
No.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this, but not Mary Lamb. What would happen if we had an 80s round with current players playing to 80s rules, proper scrum, 5 metres either side of the ruck, no interchange, no wrestling, striking the ball?
That'd be chaos. I think whoever wrote that, go back to reading the phone book. Like, find something to do with your time. Find a hobby. Just help yourself out here because we can only do so much. Look, you couldn't go back to an 80s round. It'd be just chaos. They wouldn't know how to play for a start.
Yep. Skeletor's son, who seems to send one in every week, change Origin back to weekly so it takes up 4 weeks of club football instead of 9 or 10.
What, because he says so?
Yep.
Right.
Reverse Clouds. Should the 2 home, 1 away rotation go back to a 2-year spell? So 2 games. I just think the game's moved on from that.
Well, yeah, the game's moved on. Queensland still try and hang on to it every now and then. They've got to be cajoled into letting go their game 3 decider. But it is about growing the game, and I think that if you're going to cop the $30,000 per game, you can cop having played in another city because that's where they're trying to find new fans.
I do think one should go to New Zealand soon. I've got a few more. I'm just going to try and finish these off. What do you think of Channel 7 digging into rugby league and their future opportunities? We don't want to say too much about them because maybe they'll get us on Channel 7.
No, who cares? Look, they'll go with they'll just go where the money is. Look, Legacy Media covers it because they've got financial interest in it. That's why Channel 7 aren't covering rugby league at the moment over in Perth because they've got no financial interest in it. Once they find a way to make $1 out of it, they'll find a way to cover it. Okay,
we've got a couple more, then we're done. I'm just going to do a shout out to Anton Thomas, who asked 1,000 questions around Billy and Woodsy, but we've already answered those. Tim says, who will you be watching game 2 and what pub?
I won't be one of your pubs, I'll say that.
I'll be at the Charing Cross if anyone wants to.
No, I don't know, mate. I haven't even thought about it. I'll watch it somewhere. Sitting in a corner somewhere, mate.
Yeah, just keeping to yourself. That's how we like it these days.
It's the only way I can do it these days.
The last question from Austin Lane. Can Warren try and make it through a full show without saying mate? I don't think he'll definitely be able to. Mate, I got close. Boom, boom.
Well, yeah. You don't have many mates, so you got to call me mate,
exactly,
so you got one.
Exactly, yeah. I don't have many at all. Yeah, jeez, my life. Anyway.
That's why I became a pub owner, to try and find some.
That's a bit deep. Mate, finally. There you go.
Yeah.
Prediction for tonight?
Look, I think it's going to be a fiery game. I hope it's a fiery game. New South Wales have won both games over there so far that they've played in back to, I think 2020 was the first one, and I think they've won by about 20-point margins in both games. So I'd be thinking something similar.
Blowout.
Yeah, I think, even though this is going as a Queensland must-win game, I do think that New South Wales, their preparation, if New South Wales are what we think New South Wales are, I think they win by a good score.
Very good. The only thing could be a get square from the referee. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but who knows? Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Can't wait to talk about it. Cheers.